if you're put on that pedestal, that means that that's just an example of what is possible, you know? Like, and so instead of us looking at it like, oh, well, if it was in a black neighborhood, these niggas wouldn't have done it this way. You know? We can say, oh, well, look at what these niggas can do. Yeah. Praise God.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to FEMME Time, long time no see. We are here with like pretty much all the OG crew. Amen, hallelujah. That feels good, that's exciting. Yeah, so we were just having a conversation about the public school system because it's a little crazy out here and it's been a lot going on. So we're going to use it as a segue into the news from this past week. So yeah, let's talk about it. Sam?
Let's talk about it. So, reporting live.
Okay.
It gave that. So, for those of you guys who don't know what happened recently, there was a shooting this week. There was a shooting at a Christian private school by a former student, Audrey Hale, who identifies as a trans man, shot down the door of the school, shot 3 kids, shot 3 adults, killed all. Wow. And so it was very traumatic also because we've been hearing about all these mass shootings at public schools, right? But we haven't been hearing about a lot at like charter schools or private schools or in what we would refer to as like a good location. A safe place. So yeah, there are still details that are being uncovered. He actually reached out to another former student right before going in and doing the thing, letting her know that he was going to die today. Wow. And that he admired her and just wanted her to know. He was like, I'm not doing this out of like trying to get attention or anything, and the details will be coming up soon. You're going to see me on the news. The former student, his friend, reached out to the sheriff and was ignored. The sheriff's office.
That's wild.
But again, she did not know what he was gonna do, but she just was like, something's off, like, can you please check on this person? Didn't get any response. Now, of course, the sheriff's office reached out to her after and found out more details to figure out, you know. But yeah, the other heartbreaking part and the other like astonishing part is that this maybe could have been avoided. So that is the nutshell details. Also, before we talk about it, I want to get into the fact that the shooting was also handled very, I hate to say very well, but as well as the shooting could be handled, police were able to enter and completely just end the situation within 14 minutes. So there's just a lot of layers and textures to what happened, but that's the basics of it all.
Wow. Yeah. First of all, my condolences to the family. I know. Families, the children, the parents. For sure.
Yeah. So for those, is anybody hearing about this for the first time today?
I am. Because I'm not big into, we were talking about earlier, I'm kind of stepping away from news because I realized what it was doing for my mental, especially as of late, pandemic, everything that's been going on in the world. I feel like it's impeded on me, especially my creativity. So I try to stay away. I'll hear bits and pieces, especially from like social media and stuff, because it's inevitable. But for the most part, no, I had no idea about it.
Yeah, my first time hearing about it was this morning, or when I reposted her story. Like I didn't know about it either. I mean, I guess for the same reason. Like I don't tap into the news at all. I don't know. Is that bad? I mean, I really don't. I stopped doing that a long time ago. Especially like when you start realizing like how people are sensationalizing things. Not to say that these events are not important, but like you can be caught on this continuous
like
loop of just like I'm always anxious, I'm always scared, I'm always like feeling all this various stuff. Like the media can literally just move you in different ways versus like you just having a certain way that you feel yourself. So
and for me it seemed like the events were becoming more and more like, it just seems like it's always something going on, and stuff has been happening forever, but of course there's more coverage, there's more access. You have TikTok, social media, you have Instagram, you have bites that you're receiving like every other second, and it was a lot for me. It is a lot for me. Even hearing that now, my heart is so heavy because I'm like, damn, like it really is just nonstop. You know, every time you turn around, it's some shit, I hate to say.
I don't think it's bad that we're not watching the news because, like, loud as it's kept, I don't watch the news. I typically am not abreast of what's going on unless it pops up in my timeline. I do check those things because of the nature of my work. But I also, like, even a year ago when I first started talking about a research assistant, I needed someone to help carry that burden because carrying all this stuff week to week was really tough. It didn't feel good. Like, that's why I went on hiatus last summer or whatever, just even if it was for a month, just to have like a break off from, I have a writing assistant now too, like, so to have people help me carry this load, so I'm not the one who's doing the research, who's sifting through all the things, finding out all the minute details and finding a story to tell. Like, it's helpful because it is just rough. Like, it does feel nonstop. It sucks that a platform like mine always has something to talk about. But I will say how I found out about this one hit home even more for me because I found out from a friend. Like a friend that I just saw. And so I think for a lot of us, when we hear this stuff, it's so far away. It's things that are happening in the world, but it rarely doesn't touch your own sphere of influence. And so I just visited a friend. We left Sunday, and Monday morning she texted us and said, oh, there's a shooting that happened, and my boss went to the school and is waiting to see if his kids are alive.
Oh, shoot.
So it was really crazy to hear and almost a little bit scary because, like, oh, like, this shit is getting closer and closer to home. I was thinking the other day, I don't know what made me think of this, but just so grateful that I didn't have anyone in my sphere of influence who was affected by COVID, you know, and so many people have family members, friends, co-workers who were dying from that and thinking that, oh God, like, I'm so blessed and I'm so thankful that I didn't have to go through that trauma. But it's the superhero syndrome, I think, of just youth. It's getting further and further away, like it's fading away, you know? Like, have you ever heard that? Like, young people just kind of feel like they're invincible because things don't happen to them. And things like with people close to them don't happen to them. And I think that's maybe what it is. Like, if you want to put everything in perspective, the world is not the best place. I don't think it's ever been the best place. And yes, we hear more and more about it, but we're also just getting older. And things are a lot more sobering for us. So,
yeah. I hate to be this person, but what were like the demographics of the children? It's just like predominantly white school.
Everybody was white.
Okay, see that kind of, I feel like that adds a layer too, because it's like if we're going down this road, I hate to say it, but if it's one of ours, I also feel like I probably would have heard about it too, in like a weird kind of way. But you know, because that's one thing about us, especially with everything that's been going on with like the shootings by police. I feel like we like really go hard for our people when something does happen. And it doesn't take but a couple seconds for you to see it on social media or on someone's Instagram feed. But and then you also mentioned it took them 14 minutes to de-escalate. That's another thing too. It's like, I don't know, I feel like if it was a more impoverished school or if it was a predominantly black school, it would kind of be a little bit of a different story and a different reach for me.
And it was last year with the Uvalde shooting when it happened in Texas. It took them like 90 minutes, I won't say hours, but it took them a very long time for them to neutralize the shooter. And it was because people in the department were going to get theirs, like going to get their children. It was reported that some police were like looking for their kids instead of like neutralizing the shooter. And someone said to me, like, they're painting it, it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Because there are so many layers and just so many isms when we're talking about the conversation. But the police response, the head of school, like how they're talking about the head of school who died in the incident, they're calling her a hero because as soon as she heard the shooter, she went towards the shooter. She had prepared the school because she had done some like active shooter training type of thing. And they're praising everybody for how it was handled because the focus should be on we should have the systems in place to protect our schools and our kids from this, when in fact we could do a simpler solution of if you get drunk, it's on you. Like the conversation needs to be about like not letting everybody buy a military weapon. Like, what are we talking about? So that part is really frustrating. But also the reality of it is the reason why everything was handled so swiftly is because it was a rich white school with rich white parents.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it back to when Ryan said ours, like if it was one of ours.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to think about the layers of ours and how some of us still do feel connected. Because even though he was a shooter, ours is still our community, like the LGBTQ community, feeling attacked right now. There's so much rhetoric that's going around and making it seem like this was a trans problem, like, which is, of course, in this space, it's ludicrous to say, right? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how does that become but that is an ours issue. Also, for me, it's an ours issue because as a parent, I remember when there was a lockdown. There was a hard lockdown at my son's school because there was active shooting happening at the high school. So where he goes, there's an elementary school and a high school. They're in separate buildings, but they're like within the same proximity. So they have the same title as the first part of the school. So it was like such and such schools have been locked down due to an active shooter. Could have died. I could have literally died just from the anxiety of like what is going on right now. So the moment that I heard that, I personally did not care about it being a white school, a private school. Didn't care if the shooter was black, white, or yellow. I didn't care about none of that. All that I could think about was, and still as we talk about it right now, I feel so much pain and heaviness for the fact that regardless of what y'all got going on, regardless of these laws, like somebody lost their baby. Like that's crazy to me. Somebody who held something in their bodies for a minimum of 7 months will never see that baby again.
Yeah.